You know that saying, wind extinguishes a candle and energizes fire.
Hmm.
Taleb uses that. He says, likewise with randomness, uncertainty, chaos. You want to use them, not hide from them. You want to be the fire and wish for the wind.
That's a powerful image.
It really is.
Yeah.
What if the very things that, harm others could actually make you stronger? That's the core idea we're diving into today.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to unpack Nassim Nicholas Taleb's concept of antifragile, really explore how we can gain from disorder, uncertainty, volatility, all those things we usually try to avoid. We've got a stack of insights here, hoping to help you navigate this, well, pretty surprising world.
And what's so fascinating, I think, is that this isn't just some abstract theory. It feels like a practical blueprint for living in what Taleb calls a black swan world.
Black swan world, meaning?
Meaning a world where these big, unpredictable, high-impact events happen way more often than our neat models predict. Think financial crashes, pandemics, sudden technological shifts.
Right, the things you can't really see coming.
Exactly. And instead of trying to predict the unpredictable,
Yep.
which is often futile, Taleb says, look, let's focus on building systems and ourselves that aren't just robust to these shocks, but actually get better from them, anti-fragile.
That's a huge shift in perspective. Most of us are just trying to build walls against chaos, not harness it. Okay, so let's break it down. What exactly is anti-fragile? It sounds like more than just being tough.
Oh, absolutely. It's helpful to think of it on a spectrum. So on one end, you've got fragile.
Yeah.
Fragile things hate volatility. They break under stress. The classic example is like a champagne glass.
Yeah.
Drop it.
Smashed.
Right. It has, as Taleb puts it, more to lose than to gain from random events. It just can't handle variance well.
Okay, makes sense. Lots of things are like that. Delicate possessions, maybe a company with way too much debt.
Precisely.
Mm.
Then, sort of in the middle, you've got robust or resilient.
Uh-huh.
These things can withstand shocks. They endure, they stay the same. Think of a solid rock in a storm.
Stays.
Or the mythical phoenix that rises from the ashes, sure.
Yeah.
But it comes back exactly as it was. It tolerates stress, it bounces back.
But it doesn't necessarily get stronger from the experience. It just recovers.
Exactly.
Mhm.
It survives, but doesn't improve. Now, antifragile. This is the really interesting one.
This is the fire wanting the wind.
Yes. It thrives on disorder. It improves from stress. The human body is a fantastic example. Our bones get denser under load.
Like weightlifting makes muscles grow.
Right. Wolf's Law for bones, muscle hypertrophy. Our immune system gets stronger with exposure. Or the myth of the Hydra. Cut off one head.
To grow back, it gets stronger from the attack.
It doesn't just recover. It gains capacity. It has more to gain than to lose.
Mm-hmm.
Taleb boils it down to an asymmetry test. If something has more upside than downside from random events, it's antifragile. If it's the other way around, it's fragile.
That's a really clear distinction. So thinking about people, that highly paid executive with tons of debt, fragile, one bad market turn, and they're wiped out.
Mm-hmm. Big downside.
But maybe a debt-free taxi driver. Lots of different customers, different routes. One bad fare doesn't sink them. More robust, maybe?
More robust, certainly less fragile. And then think about an entrepreneur, maybe low overhead, trying out lots of small projects, small bets.
Ah, so if a few fail, it's no big deal, but if one takes off...
Exactly. They have that positive asymmetry, limited downside on each bet, but potentially huge upside if one works. That setup can be anti-fragile.
That makes so much sense. Are there companies that actually try to build this in?
Definitely. Netflix is a famous example with their Chaos Monkey.
Chaos Monkey sounds chaotic.
It is. It's software they built that deliberately randomly crashes their own servers in production.
That sounds terrifying. Why would they do that?
Because it forced their engineers to design systems that could handle failure gracefully. They couldn't assume everything would always work. So they built redundancy, failovers. The system learned to route around damage.
So they introduced controlled stress.
To build strength. And when Amazon Web Services had a major outage years ago, taking down lots of big sites, Netflix mostly stayed up. They'd built that anti-fragility into their architecture.
Wow. Okay, this is powerful stuff. It feels like a fundamental shift in how to approach, well, everything. How do we actually cultivate this? How do we become more like the fire and less like the candle in our own lives?
Right, that's the key question. And the good news is, it's not some fixed trait you're born with. Taleb lays out some core principles we can actively apply.
Okay, let's hear them.
First up is what he calls the love of errors, or random tinkering.
Love of errors. That sounds wrong. We're taught to avoid errors at all costs.
Well, yes, catastrophic errors, sure. But this is about embracing small mistakes, small failures, as valuable information. as feedback. Taylor says the antifragile loves randomness, uncertainty, and errors. He argues we're often better at doing and learning through trial and error tinkering than through rigid top-down planning, especially when the future is uncertain.
So it's like, don't be afraid to try things and mess up a bit as long as the stakes aren't too high.
Exactly. It's about distinguishing between constructive failures, the ones that teach you something without wiping you out, and terminal ones. Each small error provides data, it toughens you. Taleb has this great line about losers. He says a loser is someone who, after making a mistake, doesn't introspect, doesn't exploit it, feels embarrassed and defensive rather than enriched with a new piece of information.
Like Edison and the light bulb, all those failures were just steps on the path.
Precisely. It encourages experimentation, learning by doing, rather than trying to predict everything perfectly up front, which is often impossible anyway. Maybe less agonizing over the perfect plan, more starting and adjusting.
Okay, I can see that. What's next?
Second principle, skin in the game.
Ah, I've heard this phrase. It means having something to lose, right?
Exactly. Being exposed to the consequences, both good and bad, of your decisions. If you get the upside, but someone else takes a hit on the downside, well, that creates fragility in the system overall. Think about it. When you have your own skin in the game, failure is a very effective teacher.
Because it hurts.
Because it hurts. It forces accountability. It prevents what economists call moral hazard, where people take excessive risks because they don't bear the full consequences.
So personally, this means owning your choices. Maybe committing publicly to a goal or investing your own money in a project.
Yes, it aligns incentives. It makes the feedback loop much tighter and more meaningful. This is the antidote to what Taleb calls the Bob Rubin trade, named after the former Treasury Secretary, where, some folks in high finance might reap huge bonuses from risky bets when things go well.
But face no personal ruin or even get bailed out when those same bets blow up the system.
Exactly. The risk is transferred to others, making the system fragile. Compare that to the taxi driver again, immediate feedback, direct consequences. Or the craftsman whose reputation depends on every single piece they make. That's skin in the game.
Right. Okay, love of errors, skin in the game. What else?
Third is optionality. This is a big one.
Optionality. Having options.
Yeah, but specifically, it's about structuring things so you have the ability to benefit from favorable outcomes, from positive surprises, without being significantly harmed by unfavorable ones. Think. Lots of potential upside, limited downside.
So it's about maximizing opportunities while capping risks.
Precisely. Anti-fragile systems or people thrive by accumulating options running small experiments. This allows you to absorb shocks better, but also, crucially, to capture unexpected wins serendipity.
How does that look practically, like for an individual?
It could mean cultivating multiple skills, so if one industry changes, you can pivot. Having diverse interests, a wide network of contacts, maybe some side projects. Basically, not putting all your eggs in one basket, not betting your entire identity or livelihood on a single fragile thing.
Diversification, essentially.
Yes, but with a specific focus on asymmetry. Taleb champions the barbell strategy for this.
The barbell, like in weightlifting?
Kind of. Imagine a barbell. Weights on both ends, nothing much in the middle. Applied to investing, for example, it means putting, say, 90% of your assets in extremely safe things, cash, treasury bills, things that won't blow up. Very conservative.
Okay, the safe end.
Then you take the remaining 10% and put it into highly speculative, high-risk, high-potential reward ventures. Things that could go to zero but could also multiply many times over.
Ah, so you avoid the middle risk stuff, things that feel kind of safe but can still hurt you badly?
Exactly. You avoid the fragile middle. With the barbell, your maximum loss is capped, that 10%. But your potential gain from those risky bets is potentially huge, open to positive black swans.
So like having a very stable, maybe boring day job
90%.
while spending evenings and weekends on a risky creative project or a startup idea.
That's a perfect personal example. You protect your core survival, your downside, while giving yourself exposure to massive potential upside.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Is there a fourth principle?
Yes, and it's quite different. Via negativa.
Via negativa. This sounds Latin, negative way.
Literally, the negative way, or the way of subtraction. It's the idea that we often improve systems or our lives more effectively by removing harmful things than by adding supposedly beneficial ones.
Subtracting instead of adding. That feels backward. We're always told to optimize, add new habits, find the next big thing.
I know, it really cuts against the grain of modern self-improvement culture, doesn't it? But think about it. We often know with more certainty what is bad for us, poison, high debt, toxic people, maybe too much processed food or news, then what is definitively good?
That's true. It's easier to identify harm sometimes.
So Via Negativa suggests focusing there first. Reducing debt is often more powerful than chasing slightly higher investment returns. Avoiding junk food is simpler and more robust for health than finding the perfect superfood supplement. Eliminating stressors, unnecessary commitments, toxic relationships, constant news checking automatically makes you stronger, more resilient, maybe even anti-fragile,
Less is more, in a
in
way.
a very fundamental way. Taleb has some provocative lines here like, drink no liquid that isn't at least 1,000 years old, wine, water, coffee,
Yeah.
or suggesting doctors should prioritize first, do no harm, avoiding unnecessary interventions, what's called iatrogenics, harm caused by the healer.
So avoiding the downside through subtraction is a key strategy, like fasting, maybe? Depriving the body for a bit seems like subtraction that leads to strength.
That's a great example. Fasting triggers cellular repair processes autophagy. It's removing the constant intake to trigger a beneficial stress response. That's via negativa in action for health.
Okay, these principles, level of errors, skin in the game, optionality via negativa, they provide a real framework. How does this play out? Can we see anti-fragility in action around us?
Absolutely. We already touched on the human body. Wolff's Law for bones, or Mises for stress responses, the immune system learning from pathogens. That's biology demonstrating antifragility. When we remove these natural stressors through constant comfort, excessive hygiene, lack of physical challenge, the body can actually become more fragile. Think allergies, metabolic issues.
Right, the paradox of protection making us weaker.
Exactly. Another powerful analogy Taleb uses is forest fires.
You mentioned suppressing small stressors.
Yes. If you religiously put out every tiny fire, you allow dead wood and dry tinder the fuel to accumulate massively. Then when a fire inevitably starts that you can't control.
You get a catastrophic wildfire, way worse than the small ones would have been.
Precisely. Suppressing volatility doesn't eliminate risk. It often concentrates it, leading to bigger, more devastating blowups later. Taleb argues this applies to economies, political systems, even personal lives, which leads to his critique of modernity's fragility.
How so?
He argues that many aspects of modern life, especially top-down systems and an obsession with eliminating all discomfort and randomness, actually make us more fragile. Think of overly centralized systems or perhaps over-optimization that removes all buffers.
And you mentioned parenting earlier.
Yes, the idea of overprotective parenting, trying to shield kids from every bump, scrape, disappointment. Taleb calls it crimes against children because it removes the small, necessary stressors that teach resilience and adaptability. It prevents them from learning from those scraped knees, metaphorically speaking.
Denying them the chance to develop their own anti-fragility.
That's the argument. He also makes this really provocative point about intelligence versus anti-fragility. He says he'd rather be dumb and anti-fragile than extremely smart and fragile.
Wow. So book smarts aren't everything.
Not when faced with real-world chaos, according to Taleb. The ability to adapt, learn from shocks, and gain from disorder can be far more valuable than the ability to predict or optimize within a narrow, stable system that might suddenly break. Adaptability trumps pure intellect in a volatile world.
That's a challenging thought. What about procrastination? We usually think of that as purely negative.
Taleb has an interesting take here, too, on what he calls good procrastination.
Good procrastination. Is there such a thing?
He suggests, maybe, he argues that procrastination isn't always laziness. Sometimes it's our body's or mind's natural defense mechanism against things that aren't truly urgent or important. It allows time to filter things. Maybe the problem solves itself or reveals itself as trivial, or a better solution emerges naturally.
So it's like a built-in buffer against rushing into unimportant things.
Kind of. He'd say, if a lion is attacking you, you don't procrastinate. If your house is on fire, you act immediately. True urgency compels action. Procrastination might just be our wisdom telling us this can wait, letting time do some of the work, letting the anti-fragility of the situation emerge.
That's a comforting thought for chronic procrastinators. It reframes it as potentially wise inaction sometimes. Okay, this concept is clearly deep and has wide applications, but it feels like it can be easily misunderstood or misapplied. Let's touch on what anti-fragility is not.
Yes, absolutely crucial. First and foremost, anti-fragility is not recklessness.
Right. It's not about seeking out danger just for kicks.
No, it's not about taking stupid, unbounded risks or actively seeking harm. It's about exposing yourself to manageable stressors, known potential downsides, within a structure where the potential upside is larger. The barbell strategy is key. You protect yourself from ruin first. You don't, as Taleb says, drop a baby to make it stronger. That's insane.
So it's calculated exposure to volatility, not just blind risk-taking.
Precisely. It's about designing systems, including your own life, to benefit from randomness, not just diving headfirst into chaos. Second, it's not universal.
Meaning not everything can or should be anti-fragile.
Exactly. Some things are inherently fragile, and that's okay. Think of delicate heirlooms, maybe certain relationships, human life itself in the face of extreme events. The goal isn't to make everything anti-fragile that's impossible and often unethical. It's about identifying where you can apply the principle effectively.
Okay, good clarification. And what about Taleb himself? His writing style is, well, it's not gentle. Some people find it abrasive.
That's definitely true. It's a common critique. Critics have called his style combative, repetitive, disorganized, even maddening. He doesn't pull punches.
Does that undermine the ideas?
You know, it's interesting. Even critics who dislike his style often concede that the core ideas, particularly anti-fragility, are powerful, insightful, and important. The message often resonates despite, or perhaps sometimes because of, the provocative delivery. The concept's strength seems to transcend the stylistic noise for many readers.
So focus on the concept. Maybe take the style with a grain of salt if needed. Okay, one last thing. Resilience. We talk a lot about being resilient. Is anti-fragility meant to replace that, or are they different?
They are different, but complementary. Resilience is still vital.
Yeah.
Think of it as the foundation. You need to be able to withstand shocks, to bounce back, to endure hardship. That's resilience.
Like the raw.
Like the rock or the phoenix. Anti-fragility builds on that. It's about not just bouncing back to where you were, but bouncing forward,
Yeah.
gaining from the shock. So practices that build resilience, stress management, good health, strong social ties, they're still crucial.
Yeah.
They provide the base upon which you can then build anti-fragility.
Yeah.
You need to survive before you can thrive.
Okay, that makes sense. Resilience is the necessary starting point. Anti-fragility is the next level up. So wrapping this up, we've journeyed through Nassim Taleb's idea of moving beyond just coping with chaos to actually becoming anti-fragile, benefiting from disorder, uncertainty, volatility. Remember that candle and fire metaphor? Wind extinguishes a candle and energizes fire. The goal is to structure your life, your work, maybe even your mindset, so that the inevitable winds of change feed your flame instead of blowing it out.
Yeah.
So maybe a question for you listening. Where in your life are you currently acting like a fragile candle, overly protected? What's one small, manageable stressor you could maybe embrace? One protective layer you could shed? Or one bit of optionality you could introduce to become a bit more like that fire, or like the Hydra?
It really boils down to asking yourself, how can I deliberately introduce manageable stresses, small failures, or randomness into my life in a way that makes me stronger, not weaker? How can I treat errors as information? It connects back to that ancient wisdom, Nietzsche's, what doesn't kill me makes me stronger. Or Marcus Aurelius saying, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way.
Right, these aren't totally new sentiments.
It's not at all. But Taleb provides a really potent modern framework and a language fragile, robust, anti-fragile to understand and apply this wisdom in our complex world. It's really an invitation to experiment.
A powerful invitation indeed. Until next time, keep deep diving into the world's most interesting ideas. And remember, the choice to cultivate anti-fragility and the practice, it's yours. May the winds of life propel you forward.